Hi guys, Mrs. Burbridge here. Welcome to another week of English learning. This has been a really brilliant unit so far, looking at suspense writing. I've really enjoyed it, and looking at some of the pieces of work you've produced, it seems like you're really engaged as well. Now, this week, we're looking at using everything we've learned about suspense texts to help us write our own. On the PowerPoint today, labelled Tuesday to Friday, which will be saved in the folder, you will see this slide which talks about writing our first and second paragraph. So it says the task is to write the opening paragraphs which set the mood for the story. Use all of the resources gathered from previous learning, magpie ideas from original text and Descriptosaurus, generated language, boxing up, created sentences, power of three, Mapos, a range of sentence openers and sentence structures. Now, many of you will look at that and feel totally overwhelmed, but a lot of it you do without even thinking. I've noticed that many of you use Mapos now naturally as part of your writing without having to think too much about how you're going to include this. Of course, in your boxing up yesterday, you will have had an opportunity to add some Mapos in. So anything you've got in there, use that today. In the folder, you will also see that there were lots of other documents saved, including some Descriptosaurus examples. It's really good to use them, and there's nothing wrong with magpieing phrases and sentences from there and then using them in your work, because you're taking something that you like, you're looking at that impact the author's had on you when they've written it and including it in your own work in the context you feel is most appropriate with your ideas. So really the main things we're looking at with suspense is the way that you set the scene and you build up the events that are going to occur. This can be done mainly through punctuation choices and show not tell. Show not tell is something you're really familiar with now. We've done lots on that, and we're going to have a look through an example that's on the slide and look at the bits in there that were effective. So here's an example of a modelled write, and we're just going to have a little look at some of the different features in here. As she walked briskly down the stairs, her mother's humming soothed her spirit, and she felt like all was well with the world. The sun shone, discovering the dew on the green grass and scented roses that were her mother's favourite. Robins sang, and the trees swayed in the calm wind. Briskly she hurried towards the church, pausing here and there to listen to the birds singing, covering her ears when the church bell rung, observing cats chasing mice who were panting from exhaustion. So that start bit's really creating a very nice, positive atmosphere. It sets the scene in a spring-like manner. There's nothing in there particularly that feels unsettling or uneasy. And the reason that a lot of authors use this in their suspense writing is because it really creates that kind of, sense of things are going to be fine, and then it turns. So it's called a false sense of security. Seems like everything's going well, and then it's going to change. Let's see what happens as we read on. Eve was drawn towards it like a magnet. Living near the church had made her fearless of the dead. She loved searching the grounds of the cemetery for little clues, read eagerly the tombstones of each grave. So here we can see very slightly the author's added in a little bit about a cemetery, so a graveyard, death and graves. Suddenly, the story that seemed really, really positive and light and, very spring-like has taken a slight turn. It's still very uplifting, but you can see that there are elements in here now that are starting to feel a little bit more like a suspense or horror genre. But she was particularly intrigued by the lonely grave under the juniper tree. A tombstone without a name, only a few symbols. Not from this world they seem. Now sunlight glimmering on hues of gold and silver caught her eye. The entwined roots were guarding something. Those roots revealed bit by bit what they were holding in their midst. It seemed like it had been awaiting for someone to unearth it. So now these short sentences, but very descriptive, really start building up. We want to find out what is going on in that box. They haven't just put in ellipsis for the sake of putting an ellipsis here, but they've built it up using those short, snappy sentences. It's making us want to think what's going to happen next. A book, but not any book. Not small, but not big either. Symbols written in gold and silver in a forgotten language drew her. The front of the book was covered in streaks of mud. The pages were stuck and would not open. She tried and failed. Eve, Eve, she heard someone calling her name. The book fell to the ground. Eve picked it up and hid it under the tall tussocks of grass that grew around the juniper tree. She will come back later to retrieve it. One thing I've noticed is here I would change this to the word would, because this is all in the past tense, so she would come back later to retrieve it. So this is really interesting now because we want to know as the reader what is in this book. What is this book about? Why is it there? How does it get there? What's going to be inside it? But they've just left us hanging on. We haven't said, and then, ellipsis, something terrible happened, ellipsis, because this is the introduction. This is just bringing us into what's going to happen. So at this point of our text, it doesn't need to be overly dramatic with lots of ellipses put in everywhere. This bit needs to be setting the scene, descriptive. And the best things that you can use here, I'm just going to show you, are the show not tell words and phrases that are here and the range of sentence openers. The ones on this sheet are rather eerie, but they don't all have to be like that. So these are just some prompts, but there will be other documents in there that should be able to help you with this. So what you need to do today is set this first bit of the scene. Who is your character? In here, we can see that the character is Eve. Where is it set? Here, we have found a book in the graveyard. That's our object and our setting. Where is your setting? What is your object? You don't need to add anything here that's giving too much away about the story later on. This is just a little taster. Something interesting's been found. What's going to happen next? And then in the following paragraphs, you're going to pick up on what is going on in the story. So in a second, I'm going to start modelling a little bit of my own Innovate right for the introduction, and I'm going to talk you through why I have chosen each of the bits that I'm going to look at. Okay guys, so now I'm going to start writing with you my introduction. I've just made a couple of notes here because I haven't done a full boxing up like you would have done yesterday. So I've made a note, my character is going to be called Tilly, the setting is going to be in the forest, and my object or my initial thing that we're going to look more into is going to be a door or a doorway. So to start off, I'm just going to go back to here and have a look as she walked briskly down the stairs. So it talks to us there about how our main character was moving around. So, through the tangled ivy drawn across the forest floor, Tilly could hear, I'm just going to take that back, Tilly could see so much natural beauty ahead. So already I've included Tilly in there, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Through the tangled ivy drawn across the forest floor, Tilly could see so much natural beauty ahead. And then from there, I'm going to describe what she can see. Turquoise. Oh, my spelling. Done it wrong twice. Turquoise waters glistened under the burning sun. And some of the local wildlife scurried amongst. In here, I really liked a way they described some grass. I'm just going to see if I can find it and magpie it. Tussocks of grass. I'm going to magpie that. So just as my starter, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so it's a bit clearer for you to see. Through the tangled ivy drawn across the forest floor, Tilly could see so much natural beauty ahead. Turquoise waters glistened under the burning sun, and some of the local wildlife scurried amongst the tussocks of grass, which, oh, I've just made a little spelling mistake here, which edged out as far as the eye could see. She had always, oh, I'm so sorry about my typing, always wanted to visit, what am I going to call my forest? I'm going to call it sorry, I just paused you there. I'm going to call it Lillingdale Forest. She had always wanted to visit Lillingdale Forest. Something about it had intrigued her. Returning to the forefront of her mind. Regularly. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. I'm going to type some more and then I'm going to talk you through what I've done. Okay, guys, I've spent a little bit of time now and I've done my introduction. I'm going to read it to you from the start because I made a couple of little changes and then we can talk through what has worked well, which areas of the success criteria I've used, and why it is an effective starter. Through the tangled ivy drawn across the forest floor, Tilly could see so much natural beauty ahead. Turquoise waters glistened under the burning sun, and some of the local wildlife scurried amongst the tussocks of grass which edged out as far as the eye could see. She had always wanted to visit Lillingdale Forest. Something about it had intrigued her, ideas of its hidden treasures returning to the forefront of her mind regularly. As she skipped past the dusty, rust-coloured toadstools and towering trees, something inside her, I'm going to add in here, could tell that she was in for a real adventure being here. Ralphie the Jack Russell Terrier shuffled beside her, burying his nose into every flower he passed by, each one with their own unique scent that was unfamiliar to him. Tilly wondered if life had always seemed this good. Ambling through tranquil forests whilst cheeping birds sang to her seemed like a dream. But dreams don't last forever. In the distance, if she squinted her eyes really tightly, the shape of a small mound could be seen, fixed with what looked like an engraved wooden door. Deciding that there was still plenty of time before her father would expect her home, she began to approach the intriguing sight. Ralphie was rolling on the floor, a butterfly lightly tapping his nose, when he noticed his owner had made reasonable ground. It always amazed Tilly to see so many insects, intricately designed and decorated, hovering and crawling amongst the trees. She wondered how it were possible to have that many different species all in one place. As she thought of this, a smile reached across her rosy cheeks. Life was wonderful. Now, as she stood a mere 5 feet from the previously almost obscure landmark, she could see the little details etched across the magnificent door. Pictures and patterns like none she had seen before covered the oak canvas. One image in particular caught her. She leaned in closer. An eye. She wondered what the significance of this could be. It must be important, and it was the only part of the door that was in colour. Bright emerald and sapphire brushstrokes ensured the eye was a focal point. As she raised her hand to touch it, a voice called in the distance. It was father. She spun around, beginning her journey home, but she knew she would be back again soon. So you can see there, I've done just what we showed in the other PowerPoint. I've just introduced that object, that set that scene, something that's happening. We know about it. We want to know what's there. We want to know why the eye is significant. However, we won't know just yet because we've just introduced. Okay, we've just introduced her and we've made a start. So let's have a look now at this PowerPoint and see the features that we want to include. So I have done detailed descriptions of surroundings. Gradual movement of the character from safety to danger. Well, we've started that. It started out very nicely. She was very settled and now she's moving towards the door. But as we're only in the introduction, we won't have done this bit yet. So this one is something that I need to work on. So I will come back to that one. Clues to intrigue the reader, a slow reveal of something. There's a door, there's a mound, there's an eye. Why are they there? What do they mean? So we've done that. Short dramatic sentences. Dreams don't last forever. So I included that in. We've got lots of subordinate and relative clauses in there. I haven't used any dashes, but I have used commas. So next time I could use a dash. I've used semicolon to link two different independent clauses. I've started with show not tell because rather than saying she smiled or she was happy, I said a smile drew across her face or a smile came across her face. So that tells you, rather than me saying she's happy, that tells you she's happy. I've talked a little bit about what she can see and hear, the birds, what she can see, the wildlife, what she can feel, well, what Ralphie can feel, which is the butterfly tapping his nose and a feeling in her tummy, but we could look a little bit more at these two. I did mention that Ralphie was smelling the flowers, so that was in there. I've got some powerful synonyms, but actually I'm going to go back and have a look at up-leveling some of my verbs, for example. Mapos, I have used some. I've said that the greenery was drawn across, so the grass was drawn across, but I might go back and include some personification about the trees. So I will let you know if I manage to get that in. The power of three is something I'm going to focus on in my second one, and repetition, I've got a little bit of that in there. So my main things I need to work on are power of three and gradual danger, and I'm also going to add in some dashes. So you can see, looking at this, I've included quite a lot just in the introduction. So I hope that helps you and gives you an idea of what kinds of things you need to do for yours. I will post this online as a reference point for you, and you're welcome to magpie any of it. If you have any questions, just let your teacher know on Class Dojo and we'll be able to help you. Good luck, and I cannot wait to read your stories.